Hi, my name is Martha Armstrong. I'm a painter.
Though I have admired her work for decades, I finally have my chance to make a movie about Martha Armstrong. Just as some figurative artists only paint people they know, Martha's show of landscapes at Gross McCleaf features places dear to her heart. She told me a story about that.
I drove across country with my daughter once when she was going to go to graduate school on the West Coast. And I said, I will drive you across and you can keep the car, but I've got to stop and paint every day for an hour at least. And she agreed. And by the time I got to Nevada, I felt this is really boring to take a new subject every single day and try to make a painting out of it. It's like you meet someone on a bus, and that's got to be a life story right there. But I guess it could be, but those paintings, I don't think I have any of them anymore. But Vermont, I've been painting for 50 years at least. And I now go out to Tucson, where my son lives and his family, and I've learned to love the desert.
I asked Martha if she ever met that other great painter of the Southwest, Georgia O'Keeffe.
I wanted so much to meet her. I wrote her a letter and asked if I could come and meet her. We were living in Haverford. She wrote back and said, well, I'm going to be at Bryn Mawr those days to give a talk, and I was going to be in New Mexico because my brother was getting married out there. So I missed her. I'd never met her, but I've certainly looked at her work for years. She and that whole period of painters, Arthur Dove and Marsden Hartley and Patrick Henry Bruce, that whole period of getting in touch with modernism and yet very tied to the landscape. I feel that American writers and American painters, it's almost as if the landscape is as much a character as any person in their novels or painting, that the landscape is the subject.
Well, how did Vermont become such an important subject for you?
My husband and I bought a piece of land in Vermont right at the time our second child was born. And it's really become a refuge for us. I love this place. I know it's mushrooms, it's trees, it's birds, it's seasons. It's not painting the same thing over and over again because it always feels new. You pick up a paintbrush and I'm not thinking of other paintings I've done. It's like, what is in front of me today?
I noticed a number of large paintings that have a cabin in it. Is that your cabin?
In 1969, two students and my husband built that cabin. It is one of those places that you think, well, should we tear it down, start over, or shall we just try to keep it going, new roof or whatever it needs? And that has been our decision, keep it going. So,
Have you ever spent a winter up there?
we drain the pipes and we leave. We didn't have water until the 1990s. So it's really primitive, yes.
Do you ever do winter paintings?
I have done winter paintings. Once I lived near Northampton, that cabin. It's less than an hour away from me there. So I would go up and paint winter paintings.
Martha, is that a tree stump in the right side of some of these paintings?
It was posts that held up quite a high wired fence to protect apple trees in an orchard. And I decided it looked too much like a prison, and I didn't want to paint it. But I left the posts because I wanted something man-made.
So do you ever bake apple pies from your orchard?
Do we ever? Oh, we have the best. In fact, this year we got more apples than the rest of Brattleboro. So we were very lucky. It's just our location. Completely organic. I mean, nobody's up there spraying. So.
What kind of apples?
A variety. They're Macintosh, Jonagolds, and McGowan's. Good for cooking.
Are you a good cook?
I like to cook. I like to eat, so I like to cook.
When did you first realize that you wanted to be an artist?
I loved painting in kindergarten, to the anger of my teacher, who would say, it's time to stop and go eat cookies. And I would not hear her. She would grab the paintbrush out of my hand and tell me firmly, go sit down. but I was just taken to painting like a life raft. I felt I was a painter all the way through grade school, furious with teachers who didn't understand what I was doing and who corrected what I was doing. Like, I painted outside the lines. I added to them. I thought they were much better. But I think I kept that rebellious spirit all the way through school. When I was in college, I went to all the art history classes, which I loved. And I didn't go to my studio classes because there was so much chatter and talk. I couldn't think. To this day, I like to be alone on a hillside in Vermont, know that nobody is going to talk to me.
So where did you go to college?
Well, I went to Cincinnati Art Academy, starting in the 7th and 8th grade. I went to Smith College, and then I went to Rhode Island School of Design to kind of free me from academia. And it was worth it. It was a terrific experience to be at RISD. I loved RISD.
A fellow RISD graduate, Judith Schechter, had difficulties with her male teachers, by the way. Did you know that?
No, but that's not surprising. I mean, I have 2 brothers, no sisters. I remember telling my parents once, everything I got in this family, I got vicariously. It's curious. I announced that in the car once in high school, and I really didn't think I knew what I was saying, but I think it was absolutely the truth.
What did you mean by that?
It means that they weren't directing any of their comments to me. What I did didn't matter to them. So when they say this to my brother or they'd say this to my other brother, I didn't fortunately have to major in science to go to college. That my father would pay for it, but my brothers did. But they were important. They were important to the future.
What did they end up doing?
Well, one of them majored in chemistry and then switched and went to law school and taught law, just quit teaching. The other one majored in geology, which he loved from the time he was a kid, but ended up being an architect, designing houses.
Do you have any thoughts about how women have fared throughout art history?
I think that things were different in the Renaissance. Women have just been admitted to the art scene, really, in the past century, and I don't think we've really established ourselves there yet, but we do have something important to say, and that it's very important to stick to it and say it.
You've done so both through your art and through teaching. Where have you taught?
Community colleges here in Philadelphia, Haverford. I taught at Bryn Mawr, Smith College, Kansas City Art Institute, a semester at Dartmouth, Holland University, in Italy for 7 years summers, graduate critiques at the Pennsylvania Academy. So that was fun.
Is the Academy going to survive?
I think it should, because I think to get it out of academia and make it an art school would give it the muscle that art schools need. And I think to spend more time going to museums and talking about painting, working in museums, having lots of open time just to paint, just paint.
As a bad student who disrespected your teachers growing up and even in college, how did you deal with students who were the young Martha Armstrongs in your class?
Brutally. I tell them they must come to class, they must be ready to paint. I usually will start a painting class with a fresh fish and tell them, you've got 24 hours to paint this, and we'll be back to do critiques on the 3rd day. Because this fish will smell so bad you won't want to be in here. It does get them started. You don't have to hold their hand over every little thing. You just have to get them to get their materials and plunge in and figure it out. And then they learn everything themselves right away, immediately.
What's it like to be the granddaughter of the great Martha Armstrong?
It's very exciting. I love coming to her shows and seeing the work that she does.
Are you an artist as well?
Sometimes. I do it for fun. I remember painting with her when I was little, and it would be so special.
And is she a good role model for not only you, but women in general?
Absolutely, yes. I feel like it's really inspiring how hard she works and how she just keeps learning and keeps learning. And I feel like I want to be like her that way.
My mom has this passion, so she just does this artistic thing every single day, and she's so driven to keep learning, and that's inspiring.
Martha, you're an inspiration to any young person who wants to become a painter. Painting seems to have slipped from its position of king of the art world. It's maybe now archduke or something, replaced by performance and installation and all that kind of stuff. What do you think about that? And has that ever made you feel like an accordion player?
I don't feel like an accordion player. I feel like it's a terribly important medium and much more difficult than people realize, that it really does take years to understand what you need to take to find your own voice in this wide open field. Sometimes 3-year-olds look like they're making better paintings than you are, but that's not where it stops. You really do need a lifetime of experience to get a hold of something.
Well, you certainly have found a unique and beautiful artistic voice.
That's very generous. Thank you.
Martha, good luck with your show and all the hundreds of upcoming shows in the next 60 years.
Thank you. Thank you, John.